This is just a normal business acquisition, right? The only difference is we need the franchise agreement, the franchise disclosure, lease agreement. But then just from your standpoint, we need 3 years of your personal tax returns. If you have existing business tax returns, financial statement, 3 years of seller's tax returns, franchise agreement, I'd already said, franchise disclosure. So that's really what we need in the beginning to underwrite the deal.
All right. Tyler asks, hey, Beau, I watched a previous episode financing a Planet Fitness franchise using SBA 7A financing. I am currently contemplating starting a fitness concept. I am evaluating my buying power first. What intrigued me with your past show was that we can potentially get high leverage financing. I believe my old 401k would qualify for a rollover for my down payment. Essentially, I'm not getting much of a return with the 401k, and I'd like to roll that into a potentially good cash flowing business. It makes a lot of sense to me. Please walk me through your thought process on this and what I might want to start looking into. My 401k has about $350k in it, and I also have $150k liquid. I am retiring from my career in law enforcement in about 3 years and have the time and bandwidth to get this going now. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on a future episode. All the best.
All right. So fitness franchise concept, currently working in law enforcement, W-2. You have an old 401k. So basically, if the 401k is from a previous employer, it's probable that you can utilize the Rob's rollover plan. So what I would do is I could put you in contact with one of our resources, our partners that handle these Rob rollover plans, and they can give you the sniff test and make sure that this is eligible to be rolled over. But essentially, if it's eligible to be rolled over, you can take that $350,000 and invest it into this franchise startup. Obviously, it sounds like you're still going through the different franchise concepts. I know there's a handful of them that you're probably looking at and will look at. But yes, I think that would be a great way to start. So basically, if you can get in for 10 or 15% of total project costs, you can be looking at purchasing a $2 to $3 million franchise concept with total build out. So if you're doing a big box type of gym, it sounds like you'll have enough capital, depending if you do something like that or an Anytime Fitness, which might be a little bit smaller. So depending on that would be a great idea. I think it sounds like you can do the rollover. And really it comes down to like you're going to keep your current employment. I think that's great because you're going to have the income coming in. Sounds like your credit's probably fine. So basically, the next steps would be to really kind of vet out and find the right franchise concept. Make sure it's an SBA on the SBA directory, that it's SBA financing eligible. And then we put you in contact with our partners that do the Rob's rollover. Make sure your 401k can be converted or actually rolled over. And then that would be the next checkbox. And then it's really just doing the due diligence on the different franchise concepts and figuring out what makes the most sense for you. But yeah, sounds totally doable. And I think it's good that you're still working your W-2 job, because I don't know if you have any other entrepreneurial or business experience, but that's the one good thing about a franchise is that sometimes they overlook like, hey, I've never worked in the fitness industry, but I'm buying a concept, a blueprint. So that makes it easier. That's why franchises are sometimes easier to finance than a startup. Like if you're going to start your own gym concept, that's going to be a little bit more challenging. You're not going to get the same leverage you would by buying into a franchise that's already got 1,000 or 600 units or 500 units or 400 units, right? So I would say it's totally probable we can make it happen. I would be happy to put you in contact so you can find out about your Rob's rollover plan, and you can just simply book a call below and we can discuss this in detail a little bit more. But thanks for the question and comment. Appreciate it.
Meet Beau Eckstein, the driving force behind Business Ownership Coach, unlocking the path to business ownership. Visit www.businessownershipcoach.com. Thrive with Business Ownership Coach.
Hey, Beau, I'm looking at purchasing a Planet Fitness franchise. What kind of financing options are there? I'm looking to invest as little as possible, as I'm sure most people who call you are looking to do. My credit score is excellent. The total project cost, including the building out of the space we've identified, is going to be $3.1 million. I was quoted by one bank that they'd finance up to 80%, but I'm looking for 90%. Is that possible for a startup like this? I have industry experience, however, I've never owned a gym myself. I'm pretty far down the road as far as moving this forward. At this point, I'm trying to nail down the financing before I sign the franchise agreement. Any help you can offer is appreciated. Thanks, Ian.
Hi, Ian. Great question. So we work on a lot of health clubs and fitness industry type of financing packages. And to answer your question, the SBA financing, which is most likely what's going to finance this franchise purchase or acquisition for you, would probably be the solution as you've gotten a quote, it sounds like, of 80% of total project costs. Well, the guidelines for SBA, they say they need a minimum on a business startup, which this is construed as a business startup, even though it's an existing franchise you're doing a startup, that you need a minimum of 10% equity injection. So when you went to that bank, most likely it wasn't that the projections didn't allow for the cash flow to debt service a larger loan. They overlaid the transaction and said, hey, we're willing to do 80%. Most banks on startups will do 80-85%, even if the cash flow is there or the projections are there. So my recommendations are to work with a bank that specializes in this vertical, that's financed health clubs and fitness clubs, and they like this franchise concept. Because if you find the right bank that likes the concept, most likely they're going to approve you at the 90% mark, as long as that's their thresholds. Some banks say, no, we're 80-85% on any startups. Well, guidelines say a minimum of 10% down. So we routinely finance up to 90% on these type of franchise startups. So to answer your question, I think it is achievable. Obviously, I haven't looked at your Form 413, which is your personal financial statement. I haven't seen your affiliates, your tax returns, all that stuff. But assuming that all checks out and you have a good business plan and you put together your projections and your sources and uses, there is 90% financing available. Now, if that's money coming from you, that 10% equity injection, these are things you didn't add into your question. But assuming you can have partners that come in, if they invest with you and they own less than 20%, then they could come in and they don't have to sign a guarantee and they don't have to go on the loan. So there's ways of bringing this equity in. So we need to dig into that a little bit more. But yes, 90% is achievable on an established franchise concept like Planet Fitness in the healthcare industry. So it's just going to we got to dive into the weeds a little bit and figure out all these unknowns that we haven't got into, obviously. But it was a great question because we do get these questions often. A lot of people that are doing fitness franchise concepts, or even people starting their own gyms or looking to expand their existing gyms. So great question. Happy to talk to you in depth. There is 90% financing available for Planet Fitness franchises. It's got a great reputation in the industry, so I would be happy to discuss this in detail. So feel free to book a call below and we can talk about your financing request.
Are you trying to escape the W-2 rat race? Or have you always wanted to own your own business? Have you ever thought about owning a franchise? If so, FranUniversity.com can help. Our training program teaches you everything you need to know about franchise ownership, from choosing the right franchise to launching and running your business. We have the resources and specialists to help you from A to Z. You'll gain the skills and knowledge you need to succeed as a franchise owner. The best part, it's free to join. Go to FranUniversity.com.
Hello, Beau. I'm interested in purchasing an Anytime Fitness franchise that has been in operation for 6 years. Can you guide me on the requirements for obtaining SBA financing? I would greatly appreciate assistance with the entire process. Thank you, Ian.
So yeah, Anytime is very popular in the franchise world for financing. So this is just a normal business acquisition, right? The only difference is we need the franchise agreement, the franchise disclosure, lease agreement. But then just from your standpoint, we need 3 years of your personal tax returns. If you have existing business tax returns, financial statement, 3 years of seller's tax returns, franchise agreement, I'd already said, franchise disclosure. So that's really what we need in the beginning to underwrite the deal. Assuming that it meets the benchmarks, you meet the benchmarks from a borrowing capacity, decent credit, there's no major derogatories in the past. Then it's a pretty standard deal, just getting the franchise documents and all that packaged up. We have a checklist. Actually, I should probably make the checklist on the website. People could see what's needed. And then I could just go to investorfinancingpodcast.com/checklist, and they could just see what the documents are needed. But essentially, it's just standard documents. We look at the cash flow of the business, and we make sure that cash flow can support the new loan that we're looking for. When you're getting the new loan, we take purchase price, we build in working capital, we build in the first couple months of employee salary. That becomes your total project cost. I can finance 90% of that. We can ask the seller to put 5% on standby or do some kind of carrying. You'd be very creative. We can get you in with as little as 5% out of pocket. So for 20 grand, you can buy a $350,000 business. That's pretty good, right? That's cash flowing and netting X amount of dollars. So those are the businesses that, most people might not have 500,000 sitting in a bank account, but they might have 50,000. So there's these smaller businesses, I think, are great starting points. An anytime fitness model could be a pretty passive model too. So definitely interested in talking with you further. We've worked on a lot of gyms, so I'd be happy to discuss this project in detail. And thanks for your question. Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.